let me tell you about what happened this weekend with DOGE. This is something that was tucked beneath the political squabbles and the Grammy night celebrity nonsense. It is a story far more important than any of our daily distractions, and it makes me oh so very happy. And you'll understand why in a minute. This story pulls the curtain back on who really holds the reins of power in our country. I want to connect a few dots with you here in the next 40 minutes or so. We're going to talk about USAID. We're going to talk about Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. DOGE and the Trump team are battling it out with USAID. Okay? We cannot let Elon Musk see our books. We are not giving him. Really? You run an aid program. What's so top secret that you can't let him see it? This is about control. Control over the flow of information, over government secrecy, and yes, control over your tax dollars. So here's the story in a nutshell. In case you didn't know, USAID, the U.S. Agency for the International Development, had its director of security, Jonathan Voorhees, and his deputy, Brian McGill, placed on administrative leave. Why? Because they refused to grant access to security systems and systems containing sensitive personnel files, security clearance information, even classified materials to employees of DOGE. When Voorhees and McGill said, no, you're not allowed to see any of this, that's when the DOGE team threatened to call in the U.S. Marshals. The U.S. Marshals over a bureaucratic disagreement? No. Remember, this is about something much, much bigger. It's about who controls the machinery of the government when it comes to foreign influence, covert operations, and the shadow games our government is playing overseas. So let's start with USAID. On paper, it sounds great, right? The U.S. Agency for International Development. They're the folks who help develop countries, build schools, and fight diseases and support democracy. First of all, I don't want to be in that business as a government. But if you've been paying attention, history will tell you something else. It's well known that USAID has been much more than an aid operation since its inception in 1961. By the way, can you tell me anything that happened, with the government and overseas things that was good that happened in the 50s and 60s? Maybe the Peace Corps, but I doubt it. USAID is a covert CIA operation. They do covert black ops all around the world, and their money just comes in, and this is aid. Black hole. Now, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is historic fact. In the Cold War, USAID funded cultural organizations and student groups and agricultural projects. They were covers for intelligence gathering. And they have been accused of everything from influencing elections in foreign countries to helping overthrow governments that didn't align with our interests. Do you want any country doing that? Don't we have a big problem with other countries influencing our elections? How dare they? Black ops. Do you remember the color revolutions in Europe? Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that every employee at USAID is a covert operative. Most, I'm sure, are good, decent people trying to do their jobs. But the agency has always had a dual identity, part humanitarian, part shadowy extension of U.S. foreign policy through the CIA. And that's really the part that I think is interesting here, because every nation knows that this is a CIA front, except the American people. We don't know that, apparently. We just, no, we're good. It has billions of dollars in black covert money flowing through it. We just don't know it because those with oversight can't see the records. President team has just been denied access. Wait a minute, who works for who? This is an aid thing. What do you have that is so very top secret? So here comes DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Sounds pretty harmless. Yeah, like a bunch of accountants trying to balance the budget. That's all we're trying to do. But those who are running black ops know that DOGE has two agendas, and the president has made it very clear. Yes, cut the waste, downsize the government. But it also has another very specific mission. Except this isn't a black op. Again, this mission is right out in the open, where all missions should be. Their mission is not only to cut the budget, but to break up the entrenched bureaucracies that have been running Washington like their own personal fiefdoms. Trump's goal was to drain the swamp, and DOGE is supposed to be one of the tools that is headed by Elon Musk to drain that swamp. Now, I personally like it for a couple of reasons. Elon Musk is one of the world's greatest minds. I mean, when he goes into his own companies, he sits with every employee for about 5 minutes and just says, what are you working on this week? And if they don't have something that, he feels is like really moving the company forward, you're not necessary, you're fired. Okay. He has a knack for cutting waste and making companies more efficient and also coming up with some really good products. He's a disruptor. He doesn't do things like everybody else. He doesn't think like everybody else. That's his strength. He disrupts industries. He challenges the norms. And he's been on a very public mission to expose and challenge what he sees as government overreach, whether it's with Twitter or X or even the critiques of regulatory agencies. Now, he can come in and he can look at these things and go, wait a minute, this doesn't seem to be exactly, what you're supposed to be doing. This is different. This isn't about posting memes and calling out the woke mind virus. This is about accessing the very heart of the government's covert machinery. That's what's happening with USAID, because it's not about aid programs. It's all about data. It's all about networks. It's all about the hidden influence that the U.S. experts, flex all around the world, including perhaps inside the United States against our own people, but we don't know. And now for the first time in decades, somebody from the outside of traditional power structures are saying, what is it you guys do here? And guess what? The machine doesn't like it. The people who've been running that machine also don't like it. I want you to remember who was in charge of USAID. Does anybody remember? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Samantha Power. Now, Samantha Power, she's the wife of the Harvard professor, Obama advisor, and author of the really super important book called Nudge. How to get people to do what you want them to do without them knowing. Nudge. So the wife of that guy, who I'm sure has nothing to do with nudging or doing anything like that, even though she was with the Biden or the Obama administration forever, she doesn't know anything about that. This is why John Voorhees and Brian McGill push back. That's why they're risking their careers to say, no, you can't come in here. Because they weren't just protecting the files, they were protecting the status quo. They're protecting a system that has operated in the shadows for decades with little to no accountability to the American people. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. The employees at USAID and across the federal bureaucracy aren't just fighting to protect sensitive information. They are fighting to protect their power. He's getting into the roots now. He's opening up to, how Donald Trump is kind of like a human hand grenade? I've said this to his face. I think you're kind of like a human hand grenade. What do you mean? Well, I mean, you're the greatest human hand grenade I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong. You just kind of throw yourself into things and then a wall comes down, and as the dust is settling, everybody goes, wait a minute, what's on the other side of that wall? That's what's happening. Except this time, they're not just lobbing grenades in. They know where it is. Over the years, we've created this massive administrative state, which is a fourth branch of government that nobody votes for. Wholly unconstitutional. No one really controls it. You notice that the people on Capitol Hill, they're afraid of the intelligence agencies. So who's really boss then? They operate with a level of secrecy that would make our founding fathers roll in their graves. This administrative state has been the gatekeeper of information, deciding who gets to know what, both here, at home, and abroad. Does the president even know? So when Trump and Musk come knocking at the door, trying to peek behind the curtain, the reaction is swift and fierce. Because if they succeed, they'll manage to pull USAID's operations and put it right under direct control of the State Department. Or even worse, in the public eye, they'll be held accountable for things. We can't have that. It will expose decades of covert actions, questionable alliances, the dark side of U.S. foreign policy that has been hidden under the guise of aid. It's why the rest of the world hates us. Think about some of the crazy things we've done in the name of foreign aid. We funneled money to warlords in Afghanistan. We gave money to the Taliban, money to Gaza to prop up Hamas. We've run guns to the Syrian group ISIS, propped up dictators in Latin America, even funded opposition groups in countries where we wanted regime change, all under the banner of freedom and democracy. Again, this is why everybody hates the American government. Her people see our influence as good and benevolent. And sometimes I think we are. Other times, America's anything but. So in exchange for our tax dollars, we've asked countries to change their laws, to accept abortion in places where the people are morally outraged. We promote transgenderism in their schools. We tell them that this is the enlightened way to go, otherwise they lose their aid. We force them to open their markets to multinational corporations that sometimes don't have their best interest at heart, and we conduct military operations on their soil. You will do it our way, and yet you don't know anything about it. Most Americans have no idea because it's all wrapped up in the nice, shiny package of humanitarian assistance. So here's what happens if DOGE succeeds. What happens if Musk and Trump manage to pry open the lid to this operation? Well, for once, the bureaucrats lose control of one of their many hiding places. The intelligence community loses one of its more useful tools. And the American people might finally get to see just how much of their hard-earned money has been used not to build schools or feed the hungry, but to manipulate foreign governments and maintain our empire of influence. And here's the kicker. This isn't about just the past, it is about the future. Because if Musk and Trump can break through this wall, it sets a precedent. It says no part of the government is beyond scrutiny of our elected officials. And that terrifies people who've been running the show. So what do we take away? One, pay attention. Stories like these are not bureaucratic squabbles. This is the battle front. This is the battle line right there that will decide who actually runs the country. We're going to see more on this, and the intelligence agencies are not going to like it. So one thing I would take away from this is don't take any news story at face value for a while. There are many hiding places, and those who receive and use dark money for black ops are going to fight back. Second, ask questions. Continue to ask questions. Why does USAID have classified systems that other government officials can't access? Why is there so much resistance in an aid organization to transparency? And third, remember the people that are screaming the loudest about protecting democracy are often the ones most afraid of the people actually seeing how the sausage gets made. So this isn't about USAID, DOGE, or even Trump and Musk. It's about whether you have the right to know what our government is doing with your money. Stay curious, America. We will get to the bottom of this, but we have to be willing to go through the tough times, remain determined and vigilant.